Hi, I'm Ravi. I'm a longtime practitioner of the spiritual path, and today I wanted to share some insights about spirituality. So today the topic I was thinking about was overcoming nihilism. So nihilism is kind of the philosophical position and the psychological experience of the world being meaningless, and every potential in the world, every potential action or relationship or task or ultimate outcome of life itself not really having any meaning or value, not really feeling enjoyable. So this has been not just a personal experience of many individual people in the world, but it's actually a really deep philosophical problem that has been in place in society since the advent of the kind of modern period of history, which people date back to the 17th or 18th century. So this is not just an isolated problem that we face, but really something that goes really deep into the bedrock of how we think about the world. And that's actually the reason why I was thinking about this topic for today. Not only did I have some personal experiences that kind of reminded me of the significance of nihilism, which I'll talk about later in the video, but I also came across this book, An Introduction to Continental Philosophy by Critchley, where he talked about how nihilism is one of the main philosophical problems of modernity that this branch of continental philosophy is responding to, and the significance of that. So I was just reminded that, a lot of great philosophers and thinkers throughout history have kind of grappled with this, and a lot of people have grappled with this in their own way. So I wanted to talk about how we deal with this at a practical level when it's this kind of philosophical problem that's overshadowing our lives, in a very direct way for a lot of us. So let's talk about how it manifests at a human level. A lot of the great nihilists um, might feel that nihilism is about a depressive void or this feeling of terrible blackness where nothing it seems possible or life seems really valueless in a deep sense. And can be perceived as active suffering brought about by nihilism. And I've had periods earlier in my life where it was like that, where I had this really deep sense of suffering that I couldn't really trace to any specific cause that just seemed to be about the futility of life or the futility um, of experience or nothing I could do could make any difference. And so I got out of that period through I think it was a number of things. A spiritual healing was part of it, but that's not really the point of this video. Because you could easily classify that as a psychological feeling of depression, I think. Um, and so what I think of as nihilism right now, or the manifestation of nihilism that I'm dealing with right now, is actually a little bit more subtle of an experience, a lot less angsty and more of a flatness. And I think this actually gets to the philosophical dimension of nihilism, maybe even a little better than the suffering aspect of it, because uh, to be to be really suffering and angsty about nihilism is almost making too much out of nothing. Like if it's really doesn't matter, then you shouldn't even feel suffering about it. You should just not even care about it. And so the manifestation of nihilism that I'm dealing with right now is an indifference at times. So sometimes I feel really engaged with what I'm doing and really interested in a post I'm writing or some projects I'm working on for my business. And then other times during the day, I feel this indifference, this feeling like this thing that I'm working on is not significant. The goal that I'm working towards is not significant. It doesn't register as having any value once I get to that point. This other project that society is working on doesn't seem significant. It doesn't seem to have any value or charge when I think about it being achieved. I don't see the larger purpose of any of this. So nihilism is the sense that no outcome, no task, nothing that any myself or anybody else is involved with has makes any difference. And it has no psychological value or psychological charge that makes me or anybody want to build that out. Um, yeah, and again, that's not consistent through the week. That's just these certain pockets of the week, and the rest of the time I feel engaged and non-nihilistic, as it were. But when I feel this nihilism coming on, I try to figure out how can I deal with this and how do I basically get out of this because at a certain level I don't believe it's true. I don't actually think that philosophical problem is what it is. Um, so yeah, that and I think the explanation for that is that nihilism is just seeped through our social structures and our psychological structures at such a deep level that it can still influence us even if we don't really believe it anymore. So what I'll do is I'll give what I think is the philosophical solution to nihilism, and then also a couple of practical tips for dealing with it on a more psychological level. So the philosophical solution I find is basically Sri Aurobindo's solution to the problem of life, as it were, which is the idea that the divine created the world basically for ananda or bliss, and it's this deep sense of bliss or fulfillment that is right at the bottom of life that uh, that overcomes any sense that life has no purpose, because the purpose of life is the deep enjoyment that is manifest just in the very act of living life itself, without any particular goal or without any particular outcome that is resulting in it. And furthermore, when you are most in tune with the thing that you're supposed to be doing at a deeper level, you can get in touch with even deeper levels of bliss. So by aligning yourself with um, those activities that are most fulfill your purpose in the world, you also get in touch with further levels of bliss, and there are various things in the world that you can interact with that are blissful, and that's the purpose for which the world was created. So the solution to nihilism is kind of baked into the very structure of the world, and it can be covered over by suffering or indifference or any of these more psychological states. But if we go deep enough through spirituality and spiritual practice, we can get back in contact with that sense of ananda, and that's the promise of the yoga. So again, this is a philosophical worldview. It's kind of a kind of reason why the universe was created, a kind of schematic map of the universe and what it consists of. That it consists of on this psychological property at the root of existence. And so one of the problems with this is that not everybody believes it. Not everybody in culture believes it. There are very authoritative figures in the scientific establishment, the political establishment that say, this isn't really true, or it's not really a solution, or it's not uh, this isn't the way the world is. But so it's kind of a solution that I find is convincing, but part of the problem is that it's not universally accepted, and therefore and the other dimension is that it requires a certain degree of a leap of engagement with practice. You have to engage with spiritual practice to be able to get in contact with an ananda, to be able to see that that is true. So it's not scientifically demonstrable as our current standards of knowledge in kind of rational society. So that's the drawback of this worldview. But if you're into different philosophical theories, this is the one that I find most helpful and most convincing. Um, yeah, so, but sometimes even philosophy isn't able to solve all our problems. You might have the philosophical answer and still experience psychological nihilism, as I did this week. So I wanted to give, in addition to that more philosophical solution, a couple of psychological kind of tricks to kind of spur ourselves in different directions and kind of get out of this nihilistic state. So one thing that I found helpful is this idea of the bag of whys. So I picked this up in an interview with Alex Hormozy, who he's a kind of business guru and he's an active nihilist, but somehow he still manages to accomplish a lot and motivate himself to do a lot of different things. He just doesn't believe the world has any ultimate meaning. But he said he's talked about in one podcast, I think the Iced Coffee Hour, how you might need a lot of different reasons to motivate yourself to do something. It might not just be one reason that motivates you. You might need multiple whys, and you might need to reach into your bag and pull out the one that kind of connects with you and motivates you at this one time. So if everything's feeling kind of indifferent and you don't really care about doing something at one stage, you might have to reach into your bag of whys, search around for the right why that feels like it motivates you at that time, and engage with it. So for an example of um, some of those whys. Like for my intellectual work, I think, it would be kind of cool to dig into the hardest intellectual problems facing humanity. I think that's kind of a cool reason to engage with intellectual work, like philosophy and things like that. It would be cool to engage with the hardest philosophical problems. So that was motivating me earlier today when, it doesn't really feel like doing anything that much. But no, if I focus myself, I can, think about philosophy and maybe make some progress on some problem that is out there. Um, so a reason to do karma yoga, for example, it would be cool to be like Champaklal. So Champaklal is one of the great disciples of Sri Aurobindo, and he was known for being a great karma yogi. And so this is kind of a virtue ethical appeal. This is a person I admire, and it would be cool to be like him because I admire him in certain capacities. So that's a reason to want to take certain actions to undertake work in the world. Um, another one is karma yoga as a service to Sri Aurobindo. So that's a reason to do karma yoga because I have a reverence for Sri Aurobindo, and by doing this work, I can be of service to him, and that provides a sense of value to me in some situations. So not all of these arguments are convincing at any given time. You might need to try out multiple arguments before you find one that works. But that's the point of having a bag of whys. So I just literally in a little Google email draft just write down my different whys that I think of throughout the day for reasons why I should do various things. And when I feel like I need some motivation, I reach in the bag and see if I can pull one out that makes me feel more motivated. So that's a rational approach, or an approach that uses the reason. Another approach, my tip number two, is to take a kind of energetic somatic approach and tune into different regions of energy in the body to see if there's an engaging energy at a time when you're feeling kind of nihilistic. Because sometimes we might feel there's a nihilism that manifests in one level of the body's energy, but if we tune into another level of energy, there's something actually more engaging. So one that I've especially found um, helpful is tuning into the solar plexus. I've noticed um, that the solar plexus actually, sometimes when I'm feeling nihilistic at the level of like lack of energy, I can tune into this endless fount of energy that takes place at the solar plexus, and I get in touch with the will principle. And the will actually just wants to act, regardless of the arguments, the philosophical arguments about there's not really any meaning to life, or there's not really any purpose, or there's not really any ultimate justification. There's actually a part of the human being that is in touch with the will, and this was kind of Nietzsche's solution to or insight into nihilism as well. This this idea of the will to power, that there's something, even if there's no ultimate reason or justification or purpose to something that we're doing, there's still something in us that desires action and power and will work to bring those things about, even if there's no real reason to. So again, that's not the ultimate solution to life, I think, but it is a great solution for just getting out of a kind of period where um, you're in a flat kind of nihilistic space. Ultimately, power needs to be tempered by higher human values. But if you're feeling like nothing really matters, and if you can just get in touch with a part of you that just wants to kind of be active and act and take action on something, then that's a way of getting out of that rut. And one other correspondence that's the same in the Indian system of psychological qualities of sattva, which is the rational quality, rajas, which is the active quality, and tamas, which is the slothful quality. That's also the recommendation that they give for getting out of the tamasic, slothful state, which is that tamas should be activated by rajas, which is the active, passionate state. So when you're feeling slothful, you should activate yourself with this kind of passionate energy, even though it's not ultimately the kind of wise, thoughtful energy of sattva, of the highest principle. It's still better to be in this kind of passionate, active state than slothful and indifferent. So the third tip I have is to be keep an eye out for different real possibilities. Um, So this is a little bit more abstract, and I'm just throwing it in there in case somebody kind of connects with it. Um, but and this also comes across it only comes across your desk at much rarer points in your life. It's not something that you're going to be able to get out of your day by day kind of down in the dumps feeling. This is only maybe once every couple of years or every year or two that you will come across a real possibility of life that seems different. Um, but when you're in a certain kind of configuration of life, when you're in a certain job and relationship situation and living situation, you can kind of contrast that with completely different living situations or configurations of your life. And sometimes some of those might give you a sense of possibility that that is actually a different way of living that might inspire you in a way that your current configuration doesn't live. So I experienced this last year when I left my job as a technical support agent with the intent of starting a content marketing agency. I could tell that, this current situation of being a technical support agent didn't feel like it was inspiring me, but I saw this other possibility of life in doing content marketing and running a content marketing agency. And that seemed like a completely different configuration of life that uh, seemed to hold a different level of possibility that my old life didn't. Um, so again, this it's only every couple of years or every so often that you perceive that kind of level of change that might make a difference in your life. But if you keep an eye out for it, you can kind of get a sense for why, if you're going years and years where nothing is changing and you're just feeling kind of nihilistic about the possibility of your life changing, keep an eye out for those kind of fundamental changes in the configuration of your life circumstances that might allow you to break out of it. Um, so yeah, that's not a day-to-day tip, but a maybe year-to-year tip. A fourth tip is keeping a list of things that make you feel engaged with life and just keep reviewing it. And as soon as you detect a hint of engagement with one of those things, then just double down on it. Um, so if you know that there's certain things that you enjoy doing, just make a list of those things, and hopefully, whenever you're feeling this way of kind of nihilistic and indifferent, if you just go down the list, hopefully one or two of those things might seem more engaging or more interesting than the other things on the list, and you can just go engage with that. So part of the game is just finding ways to engage yourself that don't give you this sense of indifference and just keeping active and keeping moving in your day without getting caught in this kind of nihilistic spiral. This is again more psychological management than it is philosophical resolution because I think many of the people watching this might be on the spiritual path, so you might be already convinced of the philosophical spiritual value of being non-nihilistic, but you're still feeling indifferent from different parts of your day. Just kind of review the things that you know will kind of get you out of that state, and hopefully one of those things will engage you at a given time. And the last thing is kind of similar, but it's at a more fundamental level. Rather than activities, we're choosing kind of values or principles that we feel are important. Um, so, and by that I mean, what are the things that you fundamentally believe that are important in the world that um, that even if there's this philosophical argument that nothing matters and we're just all a bunch of meaningless protons and electrons swimming around, are there things in your life that you believe are even more important than that? More important than the argument that you're just an electron. So for somebody that might be family, uh, you say, I don't really care that the scientists say that we're just electrons and protons because I love my son so much that that just dwarfs in comparison the electron and proton argument. Obviously, my love for my son, my cousin, and my family is so much greater than that. I'm just going to do things that help them, um, even if people say that there's no meaning to life because that just seems so much more important to me. Another thing might be justice in the social world. Um, you might think, even though the scientists say that there's just electrons and protons, I believe that people deserve access to opportunity and fairness in society, and that just motivates me so much because I believe that that's the most important thing that we should do as a society, and then you might work for a law firm that does that, working for that because that's your highest value, and that's your the highest thing that you most believe in, despite the kind of nihilistic counter argument. Another really common one. This was a common one with artists and artists in response to um, the development of nihilism in the 19th and 20th century, which is that artists said that beauty is kind of this thing that justifies itself without any regards to electrons and protons. So when you see a painting that's so beautiful or a piece of music that's so inspiring, it kind of it's self-justifying. It doesn't require you to refute the philosophical foundations of matter because it's just so pleasurable. It's just so engaging, emotionally engaging, that it just makes it so that that's obviously the most important thing you could do. And then you might be motivated to pursue a life in the arts and pursuing beauty. And I think the ultimate for the person on the spiritual path, the ultimate answer to that is the divine. The divine is the thing that is um, the most important. But I think we still need to have a sense of what intermediate values, because the divine contains every positive value, but only some of those in our finite human selves are going to resonate with us more than others. So some people will be more drawn to service, and some people will be more drawn to beauty, and some people will be more drawn to productivity. So it's important to find out what our ultimate values are that kind of transcend the nihilistic viewpoint in order to orient ourselves. And the thing with this is that this can guide our actions, even though um, even though we might be feeling nihilistic at any given moment of the day, we can still take action towards something that we judge as more important because we have the power of rational judgment uh, to say that, I've decided that this thing is more important than the nihilistic feeling that I'm feeling right now, so I'm still going to take action towards it to keep going down this path. Yeah, so those are five ways of kind of managing the psychological state of nihilism, and I've already given the kind of philosophical foundation for why I think what I think is a solution to nihilism. But this isn't the ultimate verdict on it. This is still something that's really under contention in philosophy, and nobody's really found a permanent solution to this question. So I think we're all going to be dealing with this for some time ahead, and we just need to find things that work for us, find things that make us feel engaged with life, and find some sort of philosophical foundation or grounding that makes us feel like we can over kind of defeat this force in our own lives. Um, yeah, because I think it's like I was saying, it's kind of this society-wide problem. It's not an individual problem. It's something that is very, very deep in the kind of philosophical structure of our society. So yeah, I hope this was helpful for you. And please like, subscribe, continue watching if you found this insightful. And I'll be posting more spiritual tips every week. Thanks. Bye.